welcome back to Taxation Theft, the show that talks about all the ways the government is ripping you off and what you can do to stop them. Broadcasting live from an underground bunker deep within the jungles of Mexico, I'm Dan Taxation Theft Berman, and I forgot half of my intro because it's been such a long time since I've done one of these shows, and actually the number of people who are jumping on as fast as they are is very surprising to me, because one of the reasons I haven't done this show is because of all the shadow bans and because I haven't even been on Facebook that much lately because they've been shadow banning everything. It's ridiculous. But yeah, so welcome. We got a great show for you tonight. I'm Dan Taxation Theft Berman, of course, former candidate for president of the United States, currently in the race for governor of Texas. And tonight I have an awesome guest, a friend from Twitter. Yes, if you follow the show on Facebook, or if you follow me on Facebook and you realize I haven't been over there that much, it's because I've been spending more time on Twitter. Just because, not even from a censorship perspective, but like I'm a software engineer and I take personal offense at the fact that Facebook is an engineered piece of shit. It's garbage. It doesn't work. It's slow. It's repulsive. I hate touching it. So I've been spending more time over on Twitter, which is cool because I met some more interesting people. And tonight we're going to have the Black Mutualist, who is Mutualist, which I've been called myself before, interestingly enough. But he identifies more as a libertarian socialist or somewhere in that quadrant, kind of central in that quadrant. And he's new to the Libertarian Party. We're going to have some interesting perspective. I've already had some interesting conversations with him on Twitter. So this is going to be awesome, especially if you don't believe in libertarian socialism. We're going to have some interesting conversations about that. Tonight's episode is brought to you, of course, by the Nug of Knowledge, indoor-grown, chemical-free, smokable hemp flower and Delta 8 vape cartridges. Legal in all 50 states, more or less. Get elevated at nugofknowledge.com. And now, on to the show. I'm gonna open with this question. Is taxation theft?
Taxation theft, not inherently.
Wow. What? Okay.
Voluntarily.
Show's over.
You can have a voluntary tax.
Well, yeah.
Also,
well, no,
I am not a libertarian socialist. I got to clear it up. I'm a left-wing anarchist. A mutualist.
Left-wing anarchist. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. See, this is why I hate all these buzzwords, honestly, because like they're all fucking ridiculously redefined. And like you made a good point about taxes too, right? Because like this is my position. Like, yeah, all taxes are theft. But if you read through the U.S. Constitution, like there's two taxes. And they're both voluntary. The only taxes allowed by the U.S. Constitution are voluntary taxes. But it's like, it's so yeah. But the tax system that we have today is absolutely theft. But they're not being enforced the way that they're described in the Constitution. But if they were, then it's like, yeah, it wouldn't be theft. But like then we've also kind of gone down this path of becoming all taxation is theft, which I kind of stand by. But it's like it depends. Well, what's your definition of a tax? Really? I mean,
I guess if you want to talk about taxation in its current form as you know it, then you could say that, yeah, you can classify that as theft because, taxes are no choice. These are things that you must pay. They are taken out when you perform labor, when you work your own business, when you do your own thing. So, of course, that's theft, and then it goes to it's not really it's not a business or a corporation or anything like that. Really, it goes to and it gets the money that was taken from you that you didn't really have a choice in being taken. Use what you had place on it. So I can, but not all tax. I say not inherent, because there are people that are like, oh, I will really fund the military. Just don't make me pay for Bob and Brown. A lot of saying that there's a necessary for military in 2021.
But I think
would volunteer pay for that and support that.
Even then, like there's kind of like if let's say you're walking down the street and some guy comes up to you with a knife and he's like, hey man, my family's starving, give me everything in your wallet. You just got robbed. But then you could sit there and say, well, I'm a charitable person and I like donating to feed the hungry anyway, so I didn't get robbed. Like, I was happy to give them the money. It's like, no, you still got robbed. But like, to your point though, like, you have something like an HOA, right? Because HOA has always come up. Like, it's kind of like a tax. It's kind of like a property tax. The fact that you own a house in this community, you're paying an HOA fee. And like, some people are like, I don't want to pay the HOA fees, but it's like, you signed the contract when you moved in, right? You
moved there. You supposed to move there.
Exactly. And it's like, and as long as, like, if you were to call that, like, it's not called a tax, it's called an association fee. But if it were called a tax, then you could argue that, like, that's a voluntary tax. But at the same time, then you're going to have other people who are going to say, but that's not a real tax. And that brings us to, like, the whole point of the libertarian socialism and all this other stuff. Like, well, that's not real socialism, and that's not real capitalism, and that's not real this. And like, everybody's got a different definition of all these words, which is why I absolutely hate using them. Because it's like, I'm over here having a conversation about capitalism, and somebody else is over there, like, and they're just hearing, like, how I want to, like, exploit everybody for their labor and take over the world, and like, and it's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I have money and I want to be able to use it however I want. Like, yeah, it's nuts. And it's what's really frustrating about these words is when like, you're an outside observer and you see someone else having one of these conversations, and like, they start off maybe having a productive conversation. Next thing you know, they're just arguing over what a word is defined as, and you just see them arguing like rabid animals. Like, that's not what it means. That's not what it means. And it's like, that's all they're talking about. And it's like, are you guys crazy or what?
Like, as a left-wing anarchist, right? I say I'm anti-capitalist. And if I talk to libertarian, they'll say, a right-wing libertarian kind of interested in communication and coalitions, they'll be like, oh, you means capitalist, you mean. And I see what you're saying, because like, I won't say capitalism, I'll say crony capitalism, because that's something that everybody can agree upon as a thing that exists. Right. I think that capitalism leads to crony capitalism or anything like that, and I'm not saying that I do or don't, but whether you believe that, that's kind of like, it's something to this. But crony capitalism is something that we can label situation and talk about it and talk about a plan for it. And that's also use these labels, because so many other people use them, so many other things to ideologically, and just as far as your beliefs and your stand, things like that. So many of these things tie words. Kind of do have to have an understanding. And you can say that, I would tell people that I'm a socialist. People think that the only type of socialist that there is like Marxists, but no, the anarchists were socialists, mutualists. Joseph Proudhon was one of the first people, if not the first, to call himself an anarchist, and he was a socialist. So these change over time. They get used for different things. Even as far as anarcho-capitalism, people kind of in America more so think that anarcho-capitalism is kind of like the main form of capitalism, like the only kind of form. And when I speak about how a left-wing anarchist or a traditional anarchist is egalitarian, of course, an anarcho-capitalist doesn't typically believe that, and that's because the word has shifted. And the key is not to delete either one of those. It's to understand that both of them are in use and to work with that understanding.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, like, I even find it fascinating that people use the word free market capitalism. They insist that capitalism is just freedom, and yet they have to prefix it with the word free market.
Free market,
if free market, like, if capitalism is just freedom, then free market capitalism would be redundant. But it's not. Like, they use that, they use it separately. But so let me ask you this then. As much as we hate using labels, just to kind of like, because you do identify as that, as And see, now I'm like, I've got so many labels going through my head. I'm like, wait, which one did you? Because you said you don't identify as a libertarian socialist.
You know, I just
as
had a
left.
conversation with somebody outside. They had a Bernie sticker on. I tell people, like, I supported Bernie hard as hell in 2016, and up to 2019, up until I left the Democrats over just kind of debacle and what I saw they really were. And I told her, left-wing anarchist. I think that's what I tell people, because they kind of don't know what mutualist is.
Left-wing anarchist. So what is a left-wing anarchist? Like what? How would you define that?
So I say left-wing anarchy to kind of, where I'm going back to how I use crony capitalism. A lot of people would say that this is the only form of anarchy. It's the original and traditional form. I say make a distinction between myself and or people of anarchy, people that are on the right wing, such as ANCAPs and things like that. But the left wing anarchist would be someone that is traditional form of anarchy, the egalitarianism, feminism, being against oppressive forces, or community. Like I said, the original anarchists were socialists. It would be those socialist things that you would see if you were trying to define, look for a list.
So, like, I know one of the issues that a lot of people have is like, okay, like when you try to mix the words anarchist and socialist, right? The first thing when they hear socialism, they think of like, okay, but you need a government to create these programs that are, like Bernie's, right? You mentioned you support Bernie, and like his big issue was Medicare for all. You obviously can't have a program like that under anarchy if you have no authoritarianism to force people to pay into the system who don't want to pay into it. Otherwise, it would just be like, health insurance, where everybody wants to be a part of it. They pay in, and there's no problem. So how do you I guess how do you justify that these two things can coexist?
Right. So I supported Bernie in 2019 before I left, Libertarian. I mean, I understand that every politician, has their flaws and things like that. So, I'm sure you've seen it, like when a right-wing politician or a Republican does something that maybe you like, you'll be like, fair. Like when Joe Biden pulled out of Afghanistan, a lot of people say I didn't like the way he did it, but I like that he did it. People on the left and the right. So a lot of times if Bernie or any other person that's a politician does something that I'm like, that's a good idea. For example, the PRO Act, that's a category that you see in a left-wing anarchist or a libertarian socialist. Perhaps they're pro-union. So things that are ending the right to work laws and things like that, people that push that to the forefront, I'm like, good. I like that. I support that. I like the decision making. Marijuana prohibition, things like that. Criminal justice reform. I give credit where credit is due. But to answer your question, I'm an anarchist, but I'm very pragmatic about it. I understand completely that the harsh reality of it is that anarchy probably will not be achieved in my generation, probably not the next generation either. And so therefore we must transition through minarchy. And so as long as we are going to have a small government, like I said, there's I think the Libertarian Party of Ohio, for example, I think there's someone that's pushing a reform for taxes to make them voluntary so that people can, check a box and choose what they fund. I believe that people would naturally want to, as long as we make it so the government is efficient, as small as possible and things like that, as long as we're heading towards anarchy and we're making government smaller and this goes into mutualism, dual power, where we're using the power of government and we're using the power of people to sort of build a new world together. So maybe with the government, we're using that power to take whatever resources and power that the government has used and taken from the citizens and to give them back to the citizens. Perhaps it would be an example of using dual power, while the citizens build alternative institutions and things like that, like credit unions, mutual aid organizations, farmers markets, things like that. They basically take the resources that the state has stolen from us, and taken from us, and they build the anarchist society. So as we're transitioning to that, I believe people would probably, just like the military, healthcare would probably be something that you'd see a lot of support for. I think Bernie showed that there's at least a lot of people that would more than willingly, pay money for something like that. And I think that if the system was efficient and it ran well, and we got a lot of the bloat out of the government, I think a lot of people would support that as well. So it would be, that's a way that you could sort of have something like that where it's more so voluntary, and I believe that people make their choices for a reason. If you provide an efficient product, people will get it. That's capitalism. If the government was efficient at what it did, there would be no need for libertarianism or anarchism or things like that. But it's not in so many cases. And so as long as we're engaging the citizens themselves and we're actively building that world out of anarchy, or a more libertarian world, then I think things are fine. Things will work out great.
Yeah, and I like that, a lot of the things you're saying, you're still focusing on voluntarism, voluntary solutions.
Yes.
So, I mean, to me, like, that doesn't sound like socialism at all. But like, I see, this is like, of course, that's like based on my definition of socialism, right?
Right.
What's the root word of socialism, right? It's like, it's social, and it's like, there's nothing wrong with being social, right?
Right.
And
that's why
like,
I don't understand why people say they're anti-collectivist. That doesn't make any sense to me. What's wrong with being collectivist? Collectivism is how most of humans have progressed through history.
Right.
All knowledge today is based on collectivism.
And again, like, I think it's like they're part of that. Like, they're opposed to forced collectivism, but they assume that just the word collectivism means that it must be forced. Like, again, like another assumption based on a label. And so, like, all of this is like, that's why it's all like extremely confusing for for like all this. But like, what really sucks about the liberty movement as a whole is that, like, I see, like, I have so many great friends across the entire spectrum in the liberty movement in general, and some of them will fight with each other because that guy's a such and such, and that guy's a such and such, and so because of that, like, they're opposed. When it's like, hey, if you guys like sat down and had a conversation, you'd find out you actually agree on a lot of stuff. You just I had Dane Posner on the show, who was at the time anarcho-communist, I believe, and like the converse, like, from having this was kind of like my first introduction to like talking to an anarcho-communism, because I'm like, what's like, how is communism? How can they mix, right? And like, by the end of the conversation, I'm like, okay, so basically, like, what you're saying is we both believe we should have no government, except I want to create like amazing things that are going to make me rich, and you want to gather resources and use them to help people around the world. And so, like, it's like, well, we have like the right to associate the people we do business with and the people we do activities with, and what activities we do. And if the activities that you do are to help other people, you're basically using your own resources for socialism. And if you're using your money to invest in businesses and build businesses, you're using your own resources to invest in capitalism. And it's like, those can absolutely coexist as long as you're not forcing the other person to participate in what you're doing. And it's like, that to me is just like, that is more freedom than anything else. Like, when I see libertarians say, like, you can't be an anarcho-socialist or an anarcho-communist or anything like that, it's like, wait, so you're telling somebody that they have to participate in your society and they have to use your money, and
unironically, they need to read more theory.
Yeah, it is interesting, but it's like, but that's the path I came down, right? Like that's kind of all the stuff that I learned, and like, like, I came from Ron Paul, like, oh yeah, all money should be gold, And then it's like, no, people should be able to choose what they use for money.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't like
I will say I think I like that aspect of Austrian economics where there's just like, economics is anything. It's anything people want to do to transfer. I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
yeah. And it's interesting too. Like it's more you'll appreciate this because you're into like some of this stuff, but like it's more it's more like, so like the basic law of supply and demand is almost it's more just like a balance of nature. Like if you think about it, right? Like if you blow air in a balloon, right? You now have a balloon that has higher air pressure inside of it. And if you let go, what's it going to do? The air is going to come out and it's going to balance until it hits an equilibrium, right? And you have the exact same thing. It's like what is it when one person has more money than somebody else? It's just like having higher water pressure, higher air pressure on one side of something and less on the other side. And when you look at like the border between Mexico and the United States, right? There's this line and you have like all these rich people on one side and all these poor people on the other side. And it's like, it's like the balloon. It's like you've created a wall that's keeping this pressure on one side. And if you were to just like remove the wall, remove those lines, you would actually see an equilibrium happen where that wealth would transfer into an equilibrium.
And that's kind of how black markets start, is because you stop people from getting something in a means that they normally would, so they find other means to do it. Making stuff illegal generally just like mitigates the problem. It doesn't stop it. It just like maybe like there's definitely gonna be some people that like don't do something because it's illegal, but there's definitely a lot of people that do it because it's illegal because you make money. Right? Yeah, exactly. But that it also means that if it's illegal, there's money to be made doing it in general. So you're also going to get people doing that. And ironically, because of and I was going to say, the law of supply and demand, it's probably like that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I think that maybe in a non-capitalist society, maybe it wouldn't be so concrete. Maybe things wouldn't work that way. But I don't know. I can't say whether it would or not. But either way, like if there's no avenue that can be gained, if there's no avenue that you can go down that gets you money for performing like a bad act, like something that a normal person would agree probably should be illegal, then normally people won't do it.
Right. Well, it's going to come to what's the benefit for them, right? Like if stealing got you nothing, like people wouldn't steal, right? They steal because of the benefit of that, or they kill because of the benefit of whatever. There's going to be some benefit to that.
And I was going to say the money hungry culture, and you might not like this, the money hungry culture that capitalism breeds spurs that type of action on, because it encourages the chase for money and the chase for profit at all costs.
Well, let me say this. I want to say I agree partially, but I think also the system of taxes that we have creates a bigger, like, it creates like a vacuum for that, because like, okay, imagine this, right? Imagine you had a lot of people in the United States who owned a home. They didn't have to pay any property taxes. They didn't have to pay a mortgage. They live with their family. They had everything they need, lots of land, whatever. They could do whatever they want. And they don't have any taxes to pay, right? They can just exist. Those people aren't going to be like, oh, I got to go get a job, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to pay the mortgage, got to pay the bills, right?
Right.
They wouldn't be after that. And so when you take all those people and you say, okay, guys, like, we know you guys, you're living on your own land, you have your own houses, whatever. Your neighbors are farmers and you trade with them, and you don't even have to like worry about food and taxes and shipping and like roads and all this other stuff, right? And you say, well, we're 3,000 miles away. We're going to start building, some government, and you're going to pay for it. So we're going to start charging you a property tax just to exist, just to have the life you already have. And these people, like, they're out there, they're trading, they're bartering, they don't even have cash. They don't even have money. And now they have to come up with money. What do they have to do? They have to go into town and they have to find a way to get money so that they can pay the government just to keep what they already have. And like, to me, that's like, that's kind of like the spark that ignites this like mentality of we have to have jobs, we have to have jobs, we have to have constant income because we have this constant expense of taxes. And the more they raise the taxes, it forces us to work harder. And that's why you see so many people that it's like they'll make decent money. I mean, like, you know, you can even talk about like minimum wage, people making minimum wage. If their expenses were like $50 a month, minimum wage would be a lot of money, right? You're making like $1,000 a month, but you only have to spend $50. But now imagine like the government comes in and says, we're going to add in a bunch of taxes. And now all of a sudden your expenses are $1,200 and you're only making $1,000. Then yeah, of course, that's not a living wage.
Right.
And so what does that do? That pressures people to demand that their employers pay them more, which forces small businesses out of business. It forces people to take on more debt. Oh my God, I got to pay these bills. Oh my God, I got to keep up with the interest and all this other stuff. The banks are making all this money, and all these people are like hamsters on the wheel, got to run harder and harder and harder. So I agree with you. Yes, there is definitely like those people who are like, you know, I want to get out of that. And for me, even honestly, I mean, like that was one of like, because I went broke before. Like I have my last dollar bill over here that I used to hold. I used to have it taped on my wall. The last dollar bill I ever had. And like, that was kind of like my point where I said, like, I'm not going to do this anymore because like I had bills, I had rent, I had all this other stuff. And I was like, I'm not going to, and that was for me kind of a turning point that like pushed me into like, you know what, I'm going to do whatever I can to make as much money as I possibly can. And I know it's not this, it's different for everybody, but I think like that pressure and that expense and like just knowing what it's like to live in a society where like you're always in debt, like there's, you never go broke. You like when you don't have any money, you're in debt, and like society thinks you owe them, and you're like not even part of it. Like that is the shittiest feeling ever. And like for a lot of people, I think that's why they're. It looks like greed, but it's kind of created by somebody else's greed of like of them being robbed their whole life.
Yeah, I think that, you know, taxation definitely plays a role. And it's part of the reason why I'm an anarchist. Is just like taxation is just one layer in the whole coercion that binds people so that they are in that state where they're a hamster on the wheel. It's a definite factor, but there are so many more that the state enforces, and there are so many more that a normal peaceful person wouldn't have another normal peaceful person, or, you know, even not a weird, you know, peaceful person do. You know, the drug laws, the prohibitions, immigration. Most people, you know, there are definitely xenophobes out there, don't get me wrong, but many people are completely fine living next to somebody from a different country that, you know, wants to come and make a better way for themselves or something like that. But most people agree that you should be able to move where you want to move. You know, most people agree that you should be able to, if you want to smoke, you know, weed, if you want to drink alcohol, you want to do meth, fine. You know, just don't hurt anybody. Most people would, you know, say that they just want to live in peace and they want to, you know, not be forced into anything and, you know, not be coerced, pretty much, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, like, I mean, man, I don't even know where to go with this because there's like so many different directions to take this. You know, you talk about xenophobes and like, it's funny because like I know a lot of people who really aren't, or they say they aren't, but then it's like when they actually like you put them next to somebody who doesn't speak English and they're just kind of like, oh, like, but then like to some degree it's just kind of like culture shock and like social awkwardness of like, okay, I don't know how to talk to this person, you know, there's that. But then there's also like, oh no, this person's coming to steal my job, which again is like an economic thing. Like if nobody was worried about jobs.
Exactly. It's the need for a job in the first place that you're worried about. And then they're looking at the wrong person because that person's not stealing their job. Their boss is making an economic decision.
Yeah.
That's capitalism. It's the thing, like so many things that people have a problem with are a result of that system of capitalism. And I'm not even trying to write like, you know, crony capitalism, of course.
But like to your point too, it's like decisions and like, and this is a thing too, right? Like a lot of people are like, yeah, minimum wage sucks, and it's like, so why'd you take that job, right? What if everybody earning minimum wage just said, no, I'm not going to take that job. I'm not going to work for that. Like $7 an hour? No way. I'm not going to do it. Like, what if they all started saying that? Well, first of all, they can't because they got to pay all the bills, including all the taxes, right? So like, so there's that. And like, you know, even if you like exclude taxes, like, oh, I got to pay rent, I got to pay the landlords, and it's like, yeah, but that was created by a system like cavemen didn't run around like, oh, I got to find an apartment to rent, right?
Exactly,
I got to find a job so I can pay my, like, that was never part of the human condition, right? This was created by, you know, yes, there were rent seeking capitalists who were like, I'm going to take advantage of people. I'm going to go to the government and pass laws and policies that are going to force people out of their homes, so they have to rent from me, so I'll have a continuous cash flow. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. But don't be mad at the people who own their homes. We got to figure out how to get everybody who's renting into owning homes. Like, that should be the norm. Because once you're there, it's like, you can say, I mean, shit, what happens when the next COVID comes around and we're on lockdown and nobody can leave their house and nobody can go to work, right? I mean, if everybody owned their home, like, we wouldn't be like fighting over rent moratoriums and like all this other bullshit right now, evictions, and everyone would just have their homes and be like, oh, cool, I don't have to go to work for a few months. That's fine, no big deal.
Exactly.
Right? Like that's the ultimate goal. Yeah, for some reason it's like it's like we're busy fighting over the scraps and we forget to like look at the big picture. Like, hey guys, like, we're like down. And
that's by design. That's by design of the you know, the state and those that are in charge and those that have power.
Absolutely. Man, so tell me about these conventions you went to, because I saw some posts. Man, I wish I went to the y'all thing because that looked awesome.
I was going on. I was the only one that was doing it like that. I was the only one doing it like that there.
What do you mean?
Okay, look, so y'all, like, there's so they have these speakers come up. It's a bunch of speakers, like wall-to-wall speakers, from like literally like 8 a.m. to like, I don't know, like way too late, like 6, 7, something like that, like way too late. And you don't know all these people. You don't know most of these people. You know, I went and saw Ron Paul. I went and saw Glenn Jacobs, but you know, there's not a whole lot of people. And then when you go and sit in there, this is where it really pissed me off about it as a libertarian. I went in there and they're talking about, oh, it's okay to join the Republican Party. Libertarians can't win and they won't win. Just join the Republican Party. It's fine. I'm like, no, what? That's crazy. And you know, they make a point of really, and this is a problem in the Libertarian Party. I think that needs to be addressed. Makes a point of bringing in these young people that are libertarian leaning and converting them into Republicans instead of libertarians. And then you get a bunch of, you know, the Liberty Republicans, you know, that basically, to me, they're just using the libertarian aesthetic and they're trying to get the best of both worlds. They're in the duopoly using the libertarian aesthetic. They're not fighting the grind with us. They're not getting their hands dirty. They decided they was going to take the easy. That's the easy way out.
Yeah, I mean, like,
you don't want to fight.
We saw that with like I don't remember, like they're these guys running around calling themselves Liberty Republicans and like they're elected senators and representatives and like, but they weren't really libertarian.
They're not.
Like,
they're not.
A couple leanings, and like I think that's kind of that might be a result of the Libertarian Party growing so much and getting the word of libertarianism out there, and so many people saying like, hey, actually that doesn't sound like a terrible idea. And so like the Republicans are coming along and saying like, hey, well, let's pick up those scraps, right? All these people are getting interested in that. Let's capitalize on that. Let's not let them leave to the Libertarian Party.
And as libertarians, we should have a problem with that. We're fighting the duopoly. We're not on their team. We're not trying to get people on their team, and we shouldn't be trying to work with people that are getting people that would be sympathetic to us on the duopoly side when they could join the fight instead.
Yeah. I mean, I've got all my problems with the Libertarian Party, but I'm still trying to, like, I'm taking my own strategy on how do we market liberty, how do we get people elected, and it's I mean, it really is like you have to look at the big picture and realize, like, you know, I hear libertarians say every single convention I go to, every liberty, like I hear somebody say it. You know, you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity. And it's like, yeah, but like the entire party is continuing to do the same thing over and over and over.
Exactly.
So
they want to do the same stuff.
Something's got to change. And it's interesting because like you see a lot of libertarians complain that they're not doing things right, but then at the same time they're not really coming up with the solution. So that's what I'm trying to do with some of these other projects, which by the way, let me throw this out because it's time for a sponsorship break. I'm going to I'm gonna drop this ad for freehealthcareamerica.org. Which of course is one of my organizations where we smuggle life-saving drugs from Mexico into the United States, like insulin. And so somebody reached out to me yesterday, and they're like, hey, you have a hookup for these inhalers? Because he's got asthma and he's got this. He pays $80 for one of those little inhalers, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? That's a lot, right? So I'm like, okay, let me see what I can find online. And like, because you know, Mexico is a developed country, even though it's not considered like America first world, but like you can still buy stuff online. There's like lots, like it's very civilized and advanced and technological and everything. And I'm like, let's see what they have. And so one of the first things I find is I find them for like $30-$40. And I'm like, well, that's already like half price. Let me keep looking. And eventually I came to local brands that were actually manufactured in Mexico, or not even in Mexico, but not in the United States. Because I was finding that like $30-$40 was the United States brands. I found some other brands that were manufactured not in the United States. These $80 and guess how low I found them?
Like, I'm gonna say 20.
$3.
$3? That's crazy. That's great.
$3. $3. Great, I'm like, man. So I'm gonna buy. I can buy 100 of these for $300 and take them to the United States, and I will literally be smuggling $8,000 worth of inhalers for $300.
Right.
Like that is like. This is why our healthcare system is fucked. It's got, and like everyone blames that on greedy corporations, but it's like the corporations around the world are just as greedy as they are in the United States.
True. Yeah.
Why is it the United States is able to charge that high? And it's because of the laws. It's because those greedy corporations are buying out the government.
And why is getting someone an inhaler considered smuggling? Why is that illegal?
Why? I mean, when's the last time you heard of some? This is what I said about insulin, right? Because in the United States you need a prescription to get insulin, and it's $100, and in Mexico it's $12, and you don't need a prescription. And it's like, why? And like people in America are like, well, you need a prescription because it keeps people safe, so they don't go to the pharmacy and buy all the drugs and abuse them. Nobody in Mexico, even though there's no prescription requirement for insulin, nobody in Mexico is like, hey man, let's go to the pharmacy and get some insulin and get high, man.
Right.
Nobody is doing that around the world. Nobody. It is not a thing. You are brainwashed by propaganda if you believe that.
Didn't they decriminalize all drugs in Mexico?
I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with that. The Supreme Court
You live there. You don't know.
Nobody knows. Like, you can't go buy it. Like, because, okay, so apparently the Supreme Court ruled that it is unconstitutional for them to just completely ban possession of cocaine and cannabis, right? I think there were two separate cases that came right around the same time. And it's like, okay, so that means all laws that say possession are basically null and void. These laws don't exist anymore. Yeah. And it's like, okay, and then the court said, okay, but so like crazy stuff doesn't happen. We're going to give you 6 months to like come up with some rules to like regulate growing and distribution and stuff like that. But they never did. So now it's like, I have a feeling that it's like the only people who are in that business are the cartels anyways. And they're just like, so business as usual. Like the cops aren't going to be arresting anybody, but like you don't have dispensaries popping up because like, I guess like if you wanted to start a legitimate business like that, you'd be too afraid of the cartels. And you'd probably also be afraid that the government is going to finally come around and make some regulations, and you'd have to like redo your whole business. So they might just be waiting. But I think mostly the cartels, like that would be my reason not to open a dispensary.
Right.
But yeah, it's absolutely insane. But you know, this kind of goes to like this thing that I'm always talking about, like where people are always like waiting to ask permission.
Mm.
Like it's like whether it's
But
on a
typically,
legal
people don't
level.
want to go to jail, you know.
Yeah, but whether it's a legal level or even a spiritual level, it's like people like they'll come up with an idea and then they'll be like, is it legal? Is it socially acceptable? Is it like are people like is it going to be okay if I do this? Am I going to piss people off? It's like they're waiting and asking for permission to make that happen. Then you got other people who are out there just like, nah, I got an idea. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it.
I mean, I don't know. That speaks to like kind of like a mindset thing, you know. That's like a individual thing almost. You know, there's a lot of people that are those type of people that they will go out on their own and they'll do something different, or they'll just kind of go off the beaten path. You know, like me, like kind of going back to what you were saying about everybody doing the same thing and not really change anything. As someone that's a left libertarian, I felt like, you know, this is the time for the Libertarian Party to truly be the Libertarian Party and encompass both the left and the right spirit of libertarianism. And, you know, and I should definitely, like, I can't just sit and ask and wait for people to do it. I have to go in myself and try to influence it and try to, you know, see what's going on. And see if something can be done, and you know, if I truly believe in this cause.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, like, so okay, there was this there's this thing they say, I don't know who says it, lots of people say it. The way you are in one aspect of your life is the way you are in another aspect in all aspects of your life. So for example, if you have a messy desk at work, you have a messy car, you have a messy bedroom, like everything is like, that's everything, right? Even though it's like you do different things at these different places, it's like you take on the same habits and behaviors. And it's like, yeah, they're different things, but at the base of them, there's like it's the same circuit in your brain that causes you to decide whether or not you're going to clean up when you're done doing whatever you're doing over here, over there, everywhere else. And so I think it's that same brain circuit that says, like, I have an idea, I want to do something. Do I ask for permission to do it, or do I just do it? And my concern is that since the government likes to make us ask for permission for everything, that they have affected that part of our circuitry, not just in doing things that might be illegal, but in things that like just everything. Like I mean, from the time like we're little and they say like, oh, you want to go to the bathroom? Well, you have to ask permission, right? Like from the schools. Like how much does that take on? How much does that impact the rest of our lives in that type of thinking?
Yeah, I mean that it goes deeper. You can really see the way, and that kind of goes back to authority and power, right? And you can see the way the government has taken that authority over people, because so many people associate legality with morality. They say that because something's illegal, then you must not do it, and you must be a bad person if you commit that crime, that, you know, quote unquote crime. But crime, as it is now, is something that's created by the state. That's entirely defined by the state.
That's it. Like, okay, like when you said that, I'm just like picturing like all these mafia movies where like these guys, they're out there breaking every single law, but at the end of the day, they respond to a higher authority, right? They're always like cool with the church, and like that's the law that they obey. Although somehow they're still running around killing and stealing, which I don't think the church agrees with that. So
that's a bad part.
but like,
Yeah.
but they maintain some kind of like connection there, right? But then it's like the government is just like, yeah, screw those guys. But I think that's really interesting because it's almost kind of like that's like, yeah, like that's where they get their not. I don't want to say their permission because it's not like they're asking for permission, but like their maybe that's like their acceptance of non-permission or something, or living without permission.
Yeah, I mean the government
it.
has taken that power, and where normally someone might be able to, or a reasonable person might ignore it or do something else or something like that. The government just so happens to have a ton of force and money and power behind it, and the government would rather you follow their directions, and it's a very strong rather, and they'll use every bit of that in order to make sure that you follow their directions if they deem that direction to be important enough.
Yeah. What do you think is the scariest example of that in the United States?
Criminal justice.
Like what
Because
part?
I mean just the criminal justice system, from what is considered illegal to how many years someone goes to prison for a certain crime, down to the fact that they're executing innocent people because the state determined that they were right and in reality they were wrong. Many such cases, but in this case they decided that they can take someone's life and end it. So the criminal justice system affects so much. It destroys families. It destroys livelihoods. It's one of the most coercive and I think one of the most apparent acts of government force that you can find. I mean, the criminal justice system extends to police, and you can see the police on the highway, just sitting on the highway looking for somebody. You don't have to hurt anybody. Just go a little bit too fast, they'll pull you over. That's because the state needs their money. So that's why I think things like the criminal justice system is just so apparent and so destructive, especially in the United States, especially to minorities. So I think that that's definitely the biggest one.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because like I've been to I don't know, a lot of places around the world, and nobody really, I mean, okay, maybe Canada and Australia, but like nobody really fears the police like they do in the United States. Like
Yeah.
I've been stopped, like
Well, maybe in like a third world country or something like that.
No, well, oh, see, there I was about to call Mexico a third world country. Like as many times as I've been stopped by the police here, like, and they drive around with like trucks and flashing lights all day, and like their AR-15s and everything. Like they look like SWAT team all the time. But like I've never been stopped by them once and felt like, and like even when I know they're like robbing me, right? I have never once felt like my life was in danger. But like every single time I get stopped by the police in the U.S., it's like they like, it's something about it, man. It is because it's like in Mexico, it's like you don't worry about the consequences of, like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to give him some money, or I'm gonna have to pay for a ticket or something like that. But in the US, it's like, okay, this is gonna affect my insurance. I'm gonna have to go to court. I'm gonna have to waste like 3 days going to court. I'm gonna have to deal with all this bullshit. And it's like just all of that compounds, and it's like, oh man, this is going to be a nightmare.
But then you throw it in, you pay the state enough money, or if you have enough money to have a lawyer, you can get that drop. But if you're poor, you kind of fuck.
Right. Yeah. You don't even have to go to court. You just have your lawyers go for you. That's it.
Exactly. You poor, you might go to jail.
It is, man, I've seen like some ridiculous stories of like, and it really pisses me off how people are just like, oh, well, you should have paid the ticket. Like, it got escalated. He went to jail. Well, you should have paid the ticket. And it's like, no, that's not fucking right. Like this guy, he didn't have enough money to pay for the sticker on his car. And he was like, he decided to buy food for his kids instead. And now he doesn't have enough money to pay for the ticket for not having the sticker.
The state punished him by making him pay money that he would normally use to feed himself and his family. That's how the state
now
punishes
you can stick him in a cage, so he can't even go to work.
Yeah.
And like you gotta pay the fines. How am I supposed to pay the fines? I can't get to work. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
And then don't have a job that won't, don't run out of vacation days and have to go on to a court date or something like that. Because then you're going to lose your job because you got to go to court. And if you don't go to court, you're going to lose your livelihood.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. But somehow, did you notice this? Like you get like the government has this arrangement with like all these jobs where like if you get jury duty and you have to take time off, like it's okay. But like you get a traffic ticket, like nope, that's coming out of your sick days.
That's crazy. It's like, well, if you're being used for our purposes, it's fine. But if we say you fucked up, then it's coming out of your pocket, buddy.
3 cents a mile to get to court.
Right.
Oh man, those guys are fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, man. It's a gigantic web, man, and it's terrible. Like the whole way through. You see, it's so many layers to it.
It is. I just watched this movie. It's on Mexican Netflix. It's called what is it? It's this Greek guy. It's like law of whatever the Greek guy, Herod, I think. Herod's law. But like it was really, really interesting. It was like this guy who goes to this like really small town, and he's like, this guy's actually like a good guy, right? He goes there and like so like the first the mayor was assassinated and like the governor's trying to get reelected, so he's like, we got to put a new mayor there. So he sends this like guy who's just like some bum out of like a dump shop, and he's like I'm the new mayor, and it's this shitty little town with like 100 people in it, and like a brothel and a corrupt church and like all this other shit. And so he goes in there like, oh, I'm not taking bribes, no, I'm not that kind of person, and blah blah blah. Then like next thing you know, like a week later, he's taking bribes from the brothel, he's paying off the church, he's like all this crazy stuff going on. And like it's funny because like it gets to a point where like he is the only corrupt person in the entire town, and he's threatening people with violence to like he's charging people taxes, and if they can't pay the taxes, he's throwing them in jail. And like and at some point his secretary is the only person who's working for him who's like supporting him, and he's like, there's no jailer, there's no sheriff, there's nothing. And then like eventually the secretary's like, no, you know what, you're killing these people, I'm not going to stand for this anymore. So he's like, okay, well then you go to jail. So he just pulls his little pistol out and he makes his secretary go in jail. And it's like he is now alone. He is the only person in this corrupt town who's like, and he wrote his own laws in it. And people are just following this shit because he's the one crazy guy with the gun, and they're all afraid of him. And it's like, I think Columbus was quoted as saying, with one gun, I can control 10,000 people.
Yeah, power makes like, people act.
But that's it. Like, because like you always like wonder. I mean, they're asking that question now. Like, how did all these Germans fall for like what Hitler did? And it's like you're witnessing it right now. Like people are afraid of the government, and nobody wants to be the one guy to speak up, because the first guy to speak up is the one who always gets shot. And it's like it's fear. Fear is real. Like people don't even want to admit they're afraid.
For sure, it is. I mean, definitely. I think it's because they don't want to admit they're afraid, because it's not like in the front of their mind. Like a lot of people won't do a certain action because they're afraid of going to jail. They'll act a certain way because they're afraid of losing their livelihood. Having fear isn't necessarily bad. What's bad is that the government and the state has instituted this fear, has enforced this fear on you for doing the peaceful actions or normal actions.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Fear itself is not bad. It's bad when it's used against you, and when it's used to manipulate you, or when it's I guess converted into like a bigger phobia.
Yeah, exactly. When it's weaponized against you.
Yeah.
By an authority.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. All right, man. Well, we're coming up at the end of the show.
Time flew, man.
Yeah. You got any final words you want to throw out here?
I just I want the Libertarian Party, and then the vision for the Libertarian Party going forward needs to be one of building coalitions, both the left and the right. We've seen that there are anti-government protests from the left and the right in the past year. There's a strong dissent right now in America for the government, for what they have done, and there's a strong will in America for people wanting to have control over their lives and to be able to live their lives free, without coercion, and without unnecessary payments and the hoops to jump through and things like that. So the future of the Libertarian Party needs to be one where we're building coalitions with left libertarians, right libertarians, and everybody within that spectrum, and everybody that wants the government to be smaller in some way, shape, or form. We are people that can be allies in that front no matter what.
I mean, man, I hear you talking and I'm like, that's all libertarian. Is there, I'm sure you've read the platform. Is there anything in there that you disagree with or think should be changed?
No, it's generally solid. I mean, there's I can't think of anything. You know, there's probably something. You know, you don't 100% agree with pretty much anyone. You know, pretty much, but it's solid. You know, if the Libertarian Party platform wasn't solid, if like Joe Jorgensen, that's the campaign that I kind of joined on. Joe Jorgensen, when she would be asked like, what's her stances, she would be like, yeah, it's a Libertarian Party platform. So if that platform wasn't a strong, solid foundation, if it wasn't full of great things, if it wasn't clearly better than the Democrats and Republicans, and in my opinion, a better foundation than other smaller parties you can find, I wouldn't be here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, as much as people like to fight, and like this is the dumbest one I hear all the time, man. It's the Libertarian Party, not the Anarchist Party. And it's like, yeah, no, there's this thing called the Dallas Accord. You're gonna have to go read up on that. Because I mean, like it's like, this is the thing, right? And this is what I think is beautiful about like people with different mindsets and different wants and different visions of the world coming together, is to be able to have a discussion and say, like, look, this is what I want. I don't want to force that on you, but this is the world I want to live in. And I think I can have this and you can have what you want. If we all just kind of work together here. And I think that's the most important thing. Because like when you compare that to what's going on in Congress, no, I want this and you're going to die so I can get it. That's basically the attitude that the Democrats and the Republicans have against each other out there. And it's absolutely insane. And the reality is like, no, we don't all have to be the same, but we can create a world where we can all be happy.
Exactly. Or in Congress, it'll be like, okay, let's do something to help the people during the pandemic. And someone will be like, hold on, wait a minute. I got some donors and lobbyists I need to help out. Let me shove in a couple more laws that don't need to be in there.
Exactly. 50,000 pages. My party says to vote for it. So thumbs up.
Should be good. Yeah. I don't need to read
it. Man. Feels a little bit light. Let's throw some extra pages
right. Let's throw some more in there. I got to make sure the Koch brothers are taken care of.
All right, man. It's been awesome having you on. If somebody's interested in finding out more about you or following you or having a discussion with you, what's the best place?
Twitter. Follow me. Be Mutualist. I'm also in the Libertarian Party of Georgia. I'm trying to be a delegate for the Libertarian National Convention. So I'm definitely trying to be around in official capacity in the Libertarian Party, and I'm trying to bring the Libertarian Party to prominence.
Nice. Well, hopefully I'll see you there, and you definitely got my support for whatever you need in the nomination, man.
I appreciate the endorsement, man. I'm gonna need it. I need right wingers to endorse me. They don't like me because I'm a leftist.
I'll tell I'll call my friends in Georgia and tell them to make sure they give you a vote.
Nice. I'm gonna post a link in there too, so you can see it.
For sure.
All right, we're gonna hang out in Reno, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm gonna be there. And we're gonna be. If you can make it, there's gonna be a big party. I guess I should plug this. If you go to votetexasgold.org, there's a big 50th birthday party. I know there's one going on right now for LP National, but there's a 50th birthday party going on for Texas in January. That's going to be really awesome too. It's going to be in Austin. So if you can make that.
I don't know, because Georgia's convention is going to be in January, and that's where I got to go to actually be voted as a delegate. So hopefully it don't conflict.
Yep. I understand, man.
I'll see you, man. We're going to leave, man. We're going to leave.
When I was doing these presidential campaigns going to these conventions and everything, and they would have like 2 or 3 states having the same conventions on the same weekend, and it's like, oh man, come on, you guys.
Yeah, it's too much. They had it too much. Then
Organize is better. Like we can make all of them if you organize a little bit better.
Went to like every single one of them too. Bless that man and his wife Tasha.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, man. Thanks again. I'll see you guys next time. And like I said, it's been a while since I did one of these shows. I don't know. Am I supposed to plug some stuff on the outside? Yeah, make sure to like and follow because we got.
Where can they find a link? Where can people like me and other people find a link to this?
I will send you a YouTube link as soon as this one's over.
Okay.
But yeah, YouTube. Yes. See, like I know you're asking, you're helping me out here, and I'm like totally clueless. YouTube.com/taxationistheft. Facebook.com/taxationistheft2, or follow me on what's that website called? Twitter at Dan for Texas. And I'm, you know what? I've been spending some time on Clubhouse, so go find me on Clubhouse too. That's been fun. Clubhouse, yeah, find me on there because that's like I don't want to plug Clubhouse because they're not paying me. I mean, not that anybody else is paying me to plug any of this other stuff, but Clubhouse has been really interesting because I've been able to talk to like people who are like literal Democrats and literal Republicans who are actually like, yeah, you have these great conversations with people who are not libertarians, but like they're like, oh yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that before. You're a libertarian? Oh, I'm gonna have to look into that.
The person I spoke to outside, there was a Bernie 2016 supporter. They were like, I haven't really explored the parties. I'm not sure if I'm a Democrat. I'm like, you're not. take it from somebody that was in, going for Bernie hard. You're not. You should. I told her what I'm trying to do, what I think the Libertarian Party is doing, like even the Mises Caucus, working with people like Magnus for the End of Damn Wars protests and stuff like that. I'm saying, I'm telling people there's a coalition coming. There's momentum. People know, there's a lot of people that kind of know what we need to do. And hey, there's lots of opportunity for us.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, I will see you either in January or in May.
Yeah. We'll see you, man.
Maybe I'll see you before that. I'll see you on the interwebs for sure.
Of course.
All right, guys. I'll catch you next time. Taxation is theft.